our next and final topic of the night, and that is labor unrest. Now, I think everybody saw 3 million unemployment. Uh, um, sorry, we haven't seen this many reports of unemployment claims ever in American history. 3 million claims in 1 week. Not even at the height of the 2008 crisis did we see that many this quickly. And part of it is the fact that this isn't a rolling crisis. This is something that hit us like a truck. But even taking the entire 2008 crisis together, what happened was more than what has happened so far was more than the entire 2008 crisis combined. And we're just beginning to see labor unrest. If we start seeing 30% unemployment, we are going to see things get much more ugly. We're already seeing riots in Wuhan, China. We could see riots here in the United States. And let's talk about the Instacart workers, and I'll share that on the screen. But the gist is, Instacart workers, if you don't know Instacart, it's a service that you can use to get your groceries delivered to your house. You just use the app and you pick out your groceries online, and then they deliver the groceries right to your house. And it's a cool thing, and it's something that could really help slow the spread of corona right now, because people don't want to go to the grocery store. They don't want to go to a crowded place where they can get infected or they can infect other people. So having a service where you can order your groceries, leave them on your porch, just makes a lot of sense in a time when there's a pandemic. But are the workers being compensated fairly? And that's what they're asking. And here's what they're asking for. They're asking for $5 per delivery. Now, that's really not very many. I would think that making 20 deliveries a day would be an awful lot of deliveries. So $5 an order. And they're asking for supplies of hand sanitizer, wipes, cleaning supplies, free of charge. These are eminently reasonable things. And these are things actually that Instacart has already granted. Instacart has already granted them. And of course they have. This is just common sense. It's just humane. So, but here's the thing. It's not going to stop with Instacart, because Amazon is seeing exactly the same thing. Now, you think about something like Instacart, where these workers, they're on sort of the front lines because they're going to the grocery stores. As you said, it's the stores that have seen the first wave of infections. Now, if you're Amazon and all of a sudden everybody is ordering things online, lots more things online than they ever did before because they don't want to go outside of their house, well, what's going to happen to Amazon? They're going to have to somehow pick up production, and these crowded warehouses are going to get more crowded. I don't know if you've ordered anything online recently, Eric, but if you order something from Amazon right now,
I actually just tried to order something on Amazon yesterday. Of course, everything is kind of delayed at this point. I may get these items in May or June. That's what the app says right now.
Right. Well, I've had a similar experience. I'll order something, and it'll tell me, hey, it's going to arrive in the middle of April. It'll arrive in May, and actually it arrives just a few days later. So something is happening at Amazon. They've been able to adjust surprisingly well to this crisis, but they still tell you the worst case scenario, because they do not know when things are going to come in stock, and they don't want you to be disappointed. They never want to deliver something late. But there's a huge cost on their workers. They say all employers need to prioritize the health and safety of their workforce at this time, and absolutely right. Unfortunately, Amazon appears to be prioritizing maximizing its enormous profits even over its employees' safety, and this is unacceptable, said Stuart Applebaum, RWDSU president, which is the union in question. Now, I don't know how valid these claims are. I don't know if everything they're saying is true, or if we should take it with a grain of salt. Remember, a union has something of an adversarial relationship with the business that their employees work for. And so they have an incentive to sort of play this up. But we've seen Instacart Now we're seeing Amazon. These Amazon workers are so exposed. If you have a warehouse where all of a sudden a few people are infected, before you know it, everybody's going to be infected. And I don't blame these workers for being terrified. They have all these packages from who knows where going through their facility. They have people coming in and going out. And like I said, these are crowded warehouses. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these workers get sick. And then who's going to replace them? Now, I know you have a lot of people who are suddenly out of work, but how do you train people that quickly? How do you get people trained and on the floor and keep them healthy when you've just had an outbreak in your factory? How are you going to manage that? How are you going to bring in managers? What Amazon has done is they've implemented new safety measures where they are going to check the temperature of everybody going in and going out. You talked about it. China has done this. When you go to the grocery store, they check your temperature.
By the way, I've seen images from African countries where they're doing this. I mean, it's appalling that we're not doing this. I've seen images of either security guards or police, clearly uniformed, armed people at groceries in Africa, where they are. I'm talking about African countries, some of the poorest countries in the world. I've seen those images. I think what's going on here is appalling incompetence based on, again, I am really angry at doctors right now. I'm not trying to like crap on doctors right now, especially right now, but the Western medical community and this weird bias they have about masks. And it's a weird bias that they have. It is costing people lives. It is killing people. I saw another image from New York where they converted a port into a place to make face masks. So it's a factory, okay? And it's a factory that can operate even under the stringent limitations in New York City. And the mayor was there to do a photo op, Blasio, our good friend, okay? All of the workers had PPE. All of the workers had what looked like N95 masks and gloves. The mayor had nothing. He's walking around talking to everybody because God forbid the mayor of New York put on a mask and show everybody that you should be wearing masks, because God forbid he do that. But all the workers had that on, and that's what should be happening at Amazon. That should be happening at Instacart. The workers should have PPE.
And I think that's happening. It seems like the businesses, Instacart and Amazon, were very quick to respond. Here's what their spokesman said: like all businesses grappling with the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, we are working hard, this is Amazon, to keep employees safe while serving communities and the most vulnerable. We have taken extreme measures to keep people safe, tripling down on deep cleaning, procuring safety supplies that are available, and changing processes to ensure those in our buildings are keeping safe distances. The truth is the vast majority of employees continue to show up and do the heroic work of delivering for customers every day. And I think that's an absolutely great statement. I think it's an absolutely great statement coming from Amazon, because they need to show that they appreciate their employees, that they understand the danger that they're in. They're in more danger than you or I are at. I'm able to work from my computer almost all the time. And that's wonderful. And a lot of people who are knowledge workers are able to work from their computers, and that's great for them. But where I'm going with this, and here's something where I want to take a little bit of a turn and talk about how the left wants to use this. Now, we know that, as you said, the left wants to use this to go after churches and religion, some of them, okay? And I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here. But since the beginning of Trump's administration, there have been people who have wanted labor riots, who have wanted massive strikes. And if you remember,
we have congressmen calling for that right now. Right now.
Who's calling for that?
Geez, I can't remember. I'll butcher her name. I'll work on specific quotes next time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I'm telling you, it's already there. The rhetoric is already there.
Right. On the first full day of Trump's presidency, you had the Women's March. And what was the Women's March about? Now, I understand women's rights is a good issue, but why the first day of Trump's presidency? What message were they trying to send? That he is anti-woman. Okay. Well, We know that that's what the Democrats think, and that's how they portray him. I think we're all used to their rhetoric by now. But then a month later, February 16th, they had a day without immigrants. Now that may seem a little more odd to you. What's this thing about a day without immigrants? Okay, he wants to build the wall, but a lot of restaurants were closed, schools were closed, lots of businesses simply had to close their doors because you had this nationwide strike of immigrants. And it just seemed like a strange tactic to me. Where are they getting this playbook from? A month later, 3 weeks later, actually, a day without a woman, the same thing, a massive strike to highlight the economic power of women. And I'll tell you what this is about. It's not a coincidence that we're seeing this at the same time that we're seeing the Democratic Socialists of America take over the Democratic Party. Okay? The DSA is a force because suddenly the Democrats have decided that they want to replay the 1910s and 1920s and have a fight between socialists and fascists. And they want Donald Trump to be a fascist. Now, Donald Trump hasn't been making the trains run on time. He did not respond the way that Mussolini did to the railway strike. When Mussolini came to power, the socialists and the railway union had a major nationwide strike for exactly the same reason, to show the economic power of the working man. And what happened was the fascist party, I want to quote this here, says, immediately, Mussolini's armed fascists took on the role of heroes of social order. Now, we have seen nothing so dramatic. The day without an immigrant, the day without a woman, they came and they went, and people just sort of shrugged it off. It really wasn't a big deal. In fact, the Democrats didn't get any traction, even though they wanted to paint Donald Trump as a fascist. And you saw this with the whole Antifa thing. Okay. What happened next? Next, you had Red for Ed. They wanted to turn, as Breitbart put it, and I think he's absolutely right, they wanted to turn purple states blue. And where did they have these protests? Where did they have these strikes? Oklahoma, Arizona, West Virginia. Not all over the country, not evenly distributed. They were specifically targeting states where they thought they could get the middle class and working class to turn against Donald Trump. It was all about getting Trump. It was about building an army of protesters, of strikers, people who could be the foot soldiers in the political campaign of 2020. It was always about ginning up a class warfare here in the United States. And so, yes, I absolutely agree that we're taking the workers at Amazon and Instacart for granted, and I'm glad we're protecting them because workers do have rights. They shouldn't be treated like garbage. But let's make no mistake here. What's happening is the left wants to use this as an excuse to push a very radical agenda that you and I have not signed on to, that the American people have not signed on to, and that they're not ready for. Bernie Sanders couldn't even win the Democratic nomination. At the very end, we thought for a while, hey, he's on a roll, he's going to become the nominee, and the American people are just going to accept socialism. And a lot of young people have said, hey, we're ready for socialism. But Bernie Sanders didn't win. Maybe in 10 years, another candidate like Ocasio-Cortez, maybe she will be president. Who knows? I hope that doesn't happen. But right now, the American people don't want socialism, but the Democrats cannot wait for this. They absolutely cannot wait to try to push their agenda. They want to push things like the false idea about the widening gender gap in pay, that there's discrimination in pay, that all of our wealth comes from the workers, and that people like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and all of the other business owners don't produce value. Fran Drescher and Britney Spears, and I know they're just celebrities, and I know these aren't economists, they're not politicians, okay? But they are calling literally for a general strike, okay? And that phrase general strike comes straight out of the Antifa playbook. This comes straight out of
I want to point out that on Twitter right now, as we're talking, the hashtag Amazon strike is trending. Okay, that's trending right now. And the thing is, a strike by Amazon right now would have an incredibly detrimental effect on this country, on what's left of the economy, and it could actually get people killed. You know what I mean? In the long term, depending on how long the shutdowns continue. This is a serious issue. This is a serious issue. I feel very much for the plight of these workers, you know, because I agree. And again, I think it's sort of a different problem with the PPE. Again, I think it's a bias in the Western medical community all the way through Europe, the United States, and Canada. It's a weird bias, and it's just there. Leaders, you know, I would say Trump should be walking around in a mask. You know, that's what I would say. I mean, we want optics and leadership. I would say when they do these these press conferences, they should be wearing masks, and they should be encouraging people to wear masks. But they're not, because they want to show that masks, you know, aren't necessary. And of course, something kind of hot off the presses that relates to what we're talking about. I have a friend who is part of the Transit Workers Alliance, I believe it's called. Oh no, the Transit Workers Union, TWA, one of the biggest unions in the country. Okay, they represent bus drivers, they represent flight attendants, they represent all sorts of people. And they recently had a message they put out, and I will put a link when I in the description for this video when I edit it later. There's a message from the union president where he insisted on PPE, and they got intense resistance because all the quote unquote medical people are saying, no, you don't need this, you don't need this. And they said, no, we do. We're not going to continue with your bull crap. Our bus drivers need masks. They need gloves. By the way, this has already happened in the flight industry. My friend showed me pictures of him with his mask on. The flight attendants are wearing masks. They're wearing gloves. They're required to. Okay. So I feel for them. But at the same time, we have to recognize the fact that most of these unions are aligned with some of the most extreme elements of the Democratic Party. And there's an old saying, never let a crisis go to waste. Never let a crisis go to waste.
Exactly. And the Democrats are just trying to pounce on this issue to push their radical agenda. We have Labor Day in this country because after the Pullman strikes, the government cracked down in the Pullman strikes and workers were shot. And for many people on the left, that is just as important as the civil rights movement of the 1960s. They want to relive the labor unrest of the late 19th century, early 20th century, late 1800s, early 1900s, because that was when workers and business owners were at each other's throats. And it's class revolution. It's the Marxist theory of class revolution come to life. And to do this in the middle of this crisis, well, you could never do it if there wasn't a crisis. But it's absolutely disgusting at a time when people could be starving to death, at a time when shutting down businesses could make what's already a disaster so much worse. How many people are they willing to sacrifice on the altar of their moral vanity? It makes
I would say your classic Marxist doesn't care about that, and that's the key that we have to remember. Your true Marxist believes that the ends justify the means, and we've seen this in practice so many times with Stalin. We've seen that in practice with Mao Zedong. We've seen this in practice with every major communist leader, that they do not care how many little people they kill in order to achieve their goal. So this is something that it has to be concerning. You know what I mean? I think, like I said, I feel for, I'm 100% with this union, with the TWU and their quest for PPE. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
I've been trying to advocate that with my union, my former union, in terms of police, that they need this stuff. But we have to remember, a lot of these unions, unfortunately, do have a very political agenda that is very far left. So I think it's something we really do have to keep in mind.
Well, this has been a very feisty episode of the show. Eric, is there anything else that you think we need to talk about, or are you ready to call it a night?
No, I think we covered a lot of good ground tonight, and you know, obviously this is these stories are constantly evolving. I think literally we could probably do an update on the very same stories next week, and who knows what the landscape will be then.
Right.